time we have remaining, we're going to rip through another game plan. We've seen some good principles tonight with Lou, so we're going to see if we can spotlight some different things with you. And Nicole, if you were there, then, oh, and your camera's
I'm
on.
here.
You're looking beautiful. How are you doing?
I'm doing well,
Oh my
thank you.
gosh, you have a little white furry, what is it? Oh, wow. Hi.
This is
Sorry.
Wrigley.
Aw. I'm sorry, guys. I'm an animal lover. Animals and
Thank you.
trees do it for me. Beautiful. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks. I've
Good.
been learning a lot the last few days, and I was actually in Provo over the weekend, so I'm just absorbing as much as I can.
Wow. So Provo, you've got the proximity going on. I'm literally sitting, we're on the edge of Provo Orem here in my studio and event center. So welcome, welcome. Where do you actually live and hail from?
I'm in Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very cool. I
Scottsdale,
love
not
it.
too far. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive in here a little bit. You're doing medical device sales.
Yes.
Ah, you're one of those women. I know.
I
I
don't
know
know what that
exactly.
means.
I know who I'm talking to. I just want all the men here to know that a woman in sales is going to kick a man's ass every single time. Right now, looks like you got an annual income around $320,000 a year. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges is that I like have that W-2 and I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out kind of how to manage that. And
Yeah.
then I have some other real estate assets and I just have kind of hit a wall. So I'm trying to decide
Gotcha.
what the next thing is.
Good. Tell me a little about your 401k and IRA. Any of those?
Yeah, I have a brokerage account and then I probably have some separate things. Like I literally looked up a small pension that's been sitting from my first hospital job for a long time. So I have kind of these divided assets
Yeah. So
around,
the brokerage account has how much in it?
probably 700.
Okay. And then the pension, when that ends up paying out eventually, do you know kind of monthly what they're projecting that to be? Or is that a
You know,
gross
when I
lump sum you
literally
can
just
take out?
looked it up last week, it's not that much. I think it ends up being like 66 grand and I could take it out this year if I want to or
Okay,
keep it in.
perfect. And then outside of the brokerage account, do you have any other kind of accounts where you're stashing cash?
Um, that's the biggest one. And then I have the equity in the real estate properties.
Okay, so let's talk about your own primary residence. It looks like your house is worth around 750 and you owe 195. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's one of my investment properties. That one's in California. And the reason I listed that one is because I kind of want to get out of the California market as a market.
Yeah, so it is a very blue state and it is not friendly to anybody.
Yeah.
One of my buddies just sold his $25 million castle and they tried to put that mansion tax and the exit tax also on him.
Yeah, I bet.
Unfortunately, California is a super nasty place. So I hear what you're saying on that. Okay, so real quick, if I'm
So I have three places and these are all three investment properties. I did the math that you just said, I get 0.8 and it's about 690 on equity in all three places. Those are in three different states.
okay, so I'm gonna have to do the math a little bit different because if I sell the one in California, I'm probably gonna net somewhere around $500,000 out of it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
because, so we're doing the math a little different because you don't want that one and you want to sell that one. And anytime I look at your portfolio, I'm going to look at the performance and I can already tell you don't want that house.
Yeah.
So that's a move I agree with. On the other ones, I'm not so sure. So are you liking the performance that you're getting on the other two?
I mean, they're long-term rentals. They're not big cash flowing, but you know, they're like stable tenants. I've never been really good at the short-term rental business like Airbnb and such. So that's just worked for me so far, but
Got it. Okay. My team would evaluate that and then just determine, is there enough ROI that it makes sense to keep them? Or is it
yeah.
time to tax-free transition them into something better? But
Yes.
let's just say for a moment, real quick, just hit me on the second one, real quick. It's worth maybe how much?
There's one in New Mexico that's probably worth about 5 and the equity is probably about 135 after I pay off the note.
Okay, and then on the other one?
I have a townhome in Arizona, 455 value, note left is 183. So it's like 180K equity available potentially.
Okay. So that's good to know. So there's 500,000 on the California home, and then we're sitting probably closer to 300,000 between the other two.
Yep.
Good, awesome, thank you. First of all, can everyone give Nicole a big round of applause? She's been doing a great job with her finances and her money and stashing, and she doesn't have it all just sitting in a brokerage account. She's started putting it into things like real estate. And her real estate portfolio, guys, looks a lot like kind of how people's do when you're not a professional investor. It's like, well, we're going to do this thing. Maybe we're going to Airbnb it. And then I have this townhome. We decided to keep it instead of selling it. And you kind of end up kind of collecting this hodgepodge of stuff. And a lot of it comes from places that you used to live, or advice that you had heard from people. But what we now want to do is I want to start getting stable performance so that Nicole can start really having this thing ramp up. So when I look at everything all together, first of all, you've been doing a great job accumulating. And so here's the way I'm looking at it. Now, I want to warn Nicole, I like to play my max all out number. And then of course, no one does that. We're going to do some of that, but I want to know what's my total possibility. So I'm going to start adding it up here. Between the brokerage and pension, there's basically $750,000. And at $50K a house, guys, I look at that as potential 15 homes. Raise your hand if you guys understand what I'm saying there, okay? Then on the other hand, it's like, well, if I move out on the home in California and I got 300 on the other 800,000, that's another 16. I add the 15 and the 16 and I'm basically saying, okay, there is here like 30 homes of potential. In other words, there's a lot. And so you can't do it all at once. You don't put an order in and say, next month we're gonna buy 30 homes. There are some careful transitions. It's like, okay, what do we have to do on California? What do we have to do to get it market ready? Is there a renter that needs to move out, or what do we have to do to list it? What realistically can we sell it for? When we do it, we got to do a 1031 exchange. Okay, I've got 500,000 coming out on a 1031. I've got 90 days to basically identify the properties that I'm going to put it into. There's time frames and restrictions with 1031. So it gets complicated, but that's what my team does all day long. We're just going to oversimplify this and say, okay, big picture is I've got max 30 homes that could be done. And so I'm going to play the game a little different here. I'm going to say that there's a max of 15 homes that can be done. And I'm going to leave the brokerage and pension alone because I already know that with Nicole, I'd be like, oh, I'd buy these two businesses. I'd look at doing some private equity for the diversification. And now because you're W-2 and the 320,000 from your job, if we buy these two businesses that produce 400 grand a year, now it gives you some options. Do you want to exit your company, the corporate world, and replace it? Okay, then I'm going to leave the brokerage and pension alone maybe, and I'm going to start playing with the other real estate that we're going to convert into something higher producing. Nicole, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm relating to the exited corporate strategy and also the tax situation. So
yes.
Yeah.
Loving that one. Yeah, the tax situation is, I mean, you're in a happy tax bracket. And
painful.
Yeah, so there's definitely some things that we can do to actually bring that down. One of the things that we can do is if we buy real estate, we do accelerated depreciations, we can actually time how much of that real estate we need to accelerate on so that we just start wiping out your tax situation. So first we're gonna buy the real estate that we want, then we're gonna wipe down the taxes and you're gonna start saving money too while we start making the move. So on 15 homes, I'm gonna do the same thing. If these 15 homes are only earning a 25% ROI, and each home produces over 20 years, $4.3 million, then on the low side, we're talking about $64 million over 20 years. Now, I know that you don't want to wait 20 years to get out, but I want you to see the trajectory of growth with time. And then if we were to take that same 15 and multiply it by my 34% average ROIs, write this number down, that's $261 million. Now, there's a number of you out the gate that are gonna be like, okay, come on, Krohn, did we just say 60 million and $250 million? I have a number of friends whose parents got into real estate and one generation later were worth hundreds of millions and second generation were billionaires. And so just please be aware that the compounding effect of this stuff is very, very powerful. And so all of a sudden we can start saying, okay, let's go middle of the road and let's just take the 64 and the 260 and let's just actually average them out and say that you are actually making 150 million instead of 260 and 61. On that 150 million, if we are earning on paid off real estate 0.05%, that's $7.5 million. And in our partnership of this business with 70% going to you, that's $5.2 million. Now, of course, that's a 20-year down the road number. And what you're really worried about is replacing your $320,000 a year. And so what I would do is I would buy the real estate you're gonna buy and I would let it take off. And then what I would do is I would take a look at your brokerage and pension accounts and I'd say, okay, real estate buy and hold is where you go for growth. owning businesses is where you go for cash flow.
Yeah.
And this is where you're probably targeting some absentee owner status opportunities. For example, like I'm really close friends with the CEO of Melty. It's a company that does sandwiches. It's a franchise. And you basically put out $100,000 and you make around $100,000+ a year. So it's 100% ROI. And so you're like, oh, I put out $300,000, I bought 3 Melties, and it replaced my income. And so I'm using that as a placeholder to say there are things like that you can strategically also do with money.
Yeah.
And then I would definitely set something aside for some of the private equity plays, just to learn about that down the road with me. And if you get involved in that, now when I say I find 10 companies a year that have multi-billion-dollar potential, we're not even going to touch on that, but half of my companies are tech plays. They have multiples ranging from 25 to 50x. And some of these companies are just taking off and doing crazy numbers. And so it's like, oh, there maybe is a small amount I want to put into that. And it's like, oh, if we lose 80% of the time and win 15 or 20% of the time, I literally could make millions of dollars just from a small investment there. Now it's like, okay, Nicole is shifting over time out of W-2. She owns companies that have replaced her income plus some. She's got her real estate doing this long-term game. She has some high asymmetry. Now you have the portfolio of a rich person. Like that's how their monies are either earning double digits, triple digits, or quadruple digits. You're all sitting at singles right now. And so those are some of the things that I would be looking at and considering if I were you.
Yeah, thank you. I guess one caveat is like, I'm probably 10 years from a traditional retirement timeline. So, I think that's part of why I was looking at this more accelerated math.
Yeah.
And also from a strategic standpoint, I mean, clearly I'm not optimizing that on my own. So that's driving that.
Yeah, but 10 years is plenty of time. You don't have to wait 10 years to retire. In your situation, there's definitely moves that you can make in the next 12 to 24 or 30 months that can actually cause that for you. And that's going to be getting your real estate set up for growth, but then making some of the higher cash on cash plays. So you're in a great spot.
Thank you. Thanks for reviewing that, though. That gives me some extra ideas that I didn't, know until now. So thank you.
You're welcome. And we're looking big picture, but it's all going to start with, all right, let's get started and buy a couple of homes. Hey, let's position this thing for sale. It might take 6 to 9 months, and then we're going to 1031. And guys, you got 6 months, from that deadline to get, 12 homes under contract from the proceeds. It's going to take 24 months to look back and say, we repositioned all of this stuff. Makes sense?
I mean, that's part of why I didn't sell California so far, is because I knew about the 1031, but didn't feel like I had a good enough plan to deploy that. So here I am.
Look, and it's stressful because when you deploy it, they're going to make you identify in the first 90 days where you're placing it and being under contract. And it's stressful if you don't have a strategy for the ROI.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Nicole. Everyone give Nicole a big round of applause. Awesome scenario, situation. Was a very useful game plan for us to review tonight. And that, my friend, is what we call a game plan. It's basically me stepping into your shoes and saying, hey, if I woke up as you and I had to make millions of dollars as quickly as possible, how would I do it? Well, that is your game plan. And if you would like your own custom game plan, click the link below and request a free game plan today. Let me and a member of my team reach out to you and give you a Kris Krohn certified game plan to find out when you can retire and how quick we can make it happen.